and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of On Point on our mother station, Focus on Liberia. Obviously, we have the three best minds in political talks, guys who understand the issues. We are talking about the ever-potent Michael Padmore from the ANC, a gentleman who thinks that they have all the answers to Liberia's problem. And on the left, in the blue corner, is Jimmy Eastman, the boy from Monrovia. Yes, he calls it like he sees us in the middle. So today we are going to be talking about some great issues. Actually, the four major issues trending in Liberia. And those issues are the outbursts of Prince Johnson in Liberia. What does it say? We are going to be talking about the Western Cluster. And we are going to be talking about the McGill phenomena. We are going to be talking about that, and obviously we're going to opine on the health saga of the former vice president of the Republic of Liberia. We are talking about no other than Joseph Yuma Boakai. I think we have a little clip that we're going to be playing of the vice president's performance during his staged, in my opinion, stage show in Monrovia. We are going to take a closer look of what the handlers, the propagandists didn't show you. So we are here to talk about those issues. Let me begin with my brother from 10,000 Lakes. Mr. Padmore, how are you, and how are you handling this Sunday?
Thank you so much, Mr. Gayman. I'm doing well. The family is doing well. We're out here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's a chilly, dreary day, but it's Minnesota in the middle of January. So we still got the hot pepper soup, and that conquers everything. So I'm glad to be here, and I can't wait to get started.
Wow. Mr. Eastman, from the nation's capital, what's cooking over there? Have you seen Joseph Boakai?
Hey. Well, we got a few things on the grill here. We, roasting chestnuts and got a few burgers. But in the meantime, there are pressing issues in our beloved land, Liberia, need to be addressed. And as Focus always quotes, we're here to enlighten, encourage, and motivate. But there are certain things that we need to bring to light and evaluate and analyze for our viewing public. And we hope we do it just.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, at 8 o'clock today, just a quick announcement. At 8 o'clock today, we are going to be having all the legal minds that will deal with the legal issues as it relates to these topics we are talking about. What does the Constitution say about the vice president or presidential candidate being ill or incapacitated during the campaign session? We are going to be talking about the legal issue with the Western Cluster. We're also going to be talking about the legal issue that surrounds the Prince Johnson issue and everything else in Liberia that you want legal answer for beyond our personal opinion. I would like to actually go ahead and welcome most of our folks here. Ms. Emmanuel Jackson, Confident D, she's online. Where my passed away, Dr. Edison Padmore from Ghana, Michael Chape. We have Samuel David. Ladies and gentlemen, share the show. Get involved. See the number at the bottom of the screen here. You can call in. You can leave your comment. But this is so important. We will want you all to get involved. So I want to take Joseph Boakai health issue as number 2. So number 1, let's do number 1 for number 2 and number 2 for number 1. Let's go to the Western Cluster. Mr. Padmore, you are a student of the fight for the poor. No matter what it is, we want everything that comes out of Liberia, that the people actually benefit from it. We are not saying that they need the whole pie or the whole piece of the pie, but it is bound. Everybody is bound by law and by morality to live a decent life in their own hometown where the resources are being removed. This is not what's happening. Where are we with the Western Cluster, Mr. Padmore?
Thank you so much, Mr. Gayman. Apparently, when it comes to the Western Cluster, we are where we have always been, whether it's with Lamco, Bong Mines, and you can go as far back as Firestone. The people are being taken advantage of. Very few people are benefiting from the resources of everybody. This is the same formula we have been using that past governments have used over and over again. It has not worked. It will not work. And until we make significant change in leadership and direction, this is where we'll always find ourselves. You know, the people of Bomi, you wouldn't even know there's a concession in Bomi. That's how bad it is. There's no development. There's no economic activity. There's no increase in job. Nothing. You know, but you just hear that Western Cluster is here, you know, and there's millions of dollars leaving Bomi. And the people are not impacted at the least. You know, and you know, our government continues to negotiate, you know, from a point of weakness, from a point of individuality, you know, and forgetting about the people and what the people need to improve their lives. And because of this, you know, so we have these issues, you know, and we've seen it all over. And I'm hoping that this is the last time we'll see this in Liberia. I'm hoping that finally the people are waking up. It's great. The people now are speaking and saying no. They are calling town hall meetings. They are rebuking their leaders. Great. Now, you just need to vote them out and vote in proper people that will actually seek your interests and move your county and your village, your community forward. You know, it's really, really, really sad that after all this time, we're still using charity methods. You know, you'll come, you'll give a bunch of money to the government, and then the government will take care of everybody. It doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way before. You know, people line their pockets, they hand out brown paper bags, and then everybody go their merry way. And then when things start to unravel, you know, then we see it's so good that we have social media, we have the internet. So now, even if you're sitting down in Mecca, you know, or Swan District, you can see, you can hear, and something happening, and you can know. So I'm that part of it. I'm excited, but on the whole Western Coast, I'm very downhearted with the whole issue, and I'm hoping that the people don't allow these corrupt leaders to sell them short. And what do I mean by that? Usually when the people speak, the pattern has been very simple. You isolate the leaders. You isolate the people that are creating problem. You either offer them bribe or you knock them out of the way. And business continues as usual. I'm hoping this time that the people won't allow that to happen. They will actually stand up for their rights and demand what is rightfully theirs. And that is the saddest part. The people are not asking for anything extra. They're not asking for a handout. They just want what is rightfully theirs. And it shouldn't be this hard. It should not be this hard.
Mr. Padmore, I wouldn't let you off the hook here. You sound like somebody from the ANC or from the CPP. Can you direct us to a particular place, either on social media, your website, documentation that deals with concession agreement that we can go to say, when the CPP or the ANC comes to power, they will be any different from 1958, Lamco coming to Liberia, Liberian Agriculture Company, Metal Steel. Do you have anything that you can show us that we can go to that can match what you are saying here? And we are talking about words to action, not just talk like you're doing now. And the ANC people are very good at creating this mirage.
No, man, Mr. Gayman. Look, here's the thing. Some things are so simple, they don't even need to be written down. Honesty don't need to be written down. Integrity don't need to be written down. Transparency don't need to. Those things are not extra things. Those are not things that even need to be in policy. Those are normal human leadership. Transparency, integrity, honesty. If you don't have that, why even? If you have to write that down, if you have to tell people, vote for me, I will be honest. You know what? You need to leave the race. Because they're telling all that. If you have to think before you're honest, it doesn't come to you naturally. You don't need to be in leadership.
Mr. Dualo, welcome to the show. This is the greatest snake oil salesman I have ever seen in politics, in propaganda, anything. Mr. Dualo, you are a Boakai man, you are a Unity Party man, and I'm putting the crown on your head. There is no reason that you're going to run away from this time. Tell me where on social media, in your platform, or on your website, where we have, because I like you because you like to write policy. Tell me where you have actual rating policy that would deviate or that would differentiate you from the old government of the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and actually of the 1000s that said concession agreement or concession in the Republic of Liberia is going to be totally different from what we have in about 50 years.
Thank you. Well, listen, thank God you brought that up. First of all, I'm not a Unity Party man. I support Honorable Boakai. I want that clarity out there. Let me say this. People, and I've written a policy on it. Google, close all the mines in Liberia, all of them. That's the first paper. And I wrote a second paper, leveraging Liberia's resources to live the pro-poor agenda. If we follow those guidelines, Mr. Gayman, we can actually begin to build the institutions that will protect the natural resources in that country. And I will say that very slowly again, close all the mines in Liberia. It was spotted by Front Page Data Observer Liberian Perspective. They're all out there. And you can Google leveraging Liberia's resources to live the pro-poor agenda. My issue on the Western cluster, as it stands right now, this company cannot do this job. I'm not just saying this. I've actually gone to the company's website and I'll actually pull down the balance sheet and I'm looking at the actual financial. This is their report out of 2017 that they themselves presented to do an auditing firm. They cannot do this job under no circumstance. Let me tell you what the balance sheets show. Just in a summary, the actual cash this company has on hand, the Western cluster, they own this massive conglomerate out of India. Look, the company is a fragmentation. So what they do is they layer the company so there is no liability directly to the parent company. So in Liberia, the entire cash valuation is $75,000. Mr. Gayman, I can come up with that money. This is all the own in cash in the Republic of Liberia. The actual debt that they brought into Liberia, which is a made-up debt, is over $125 million. Where did that debt come from? Nobody knows. The actual everything they own in Liberia, everything is $5.6 million. That means they own nothing. Of that $5.6 million, it is outsourced actual assets in the country. So Western Cluster cannot do this job under any circumstance. In fact, how the contract was awarded to Western Cluster is very bad for Liberia. There is no reason. And your government, the CDC government, when the MDA was disregarded, they took this MOU that is literally going to destroy this country. The MOU was designed in a way for these CDC boards to fatten their pockets before they exit this ring, because they're going come 2024, January 20th. President is history. Hopefully he gets arrested, tried, and imprisoned. That would be my hope for the country. But I know Mr. Gayman wouldn't want that. You want to give him a trophy because that's what President Weah loves. I'll go to Mr. Eastman.
Mr. Eastman, you see, there's something about the Unity Party. The Unity Party like an orphan. Nobody want to claim ownership to them. This young man lived in Liberia. He supported Joseph Boakai. He does everything. He did everything Unity Party. But now Unity Party is an orphan. It's a losing horse. Nobody wants to ride a losing horse. Nobody wants to claim it to an orphan. He made a proclamation up front. He says he's not member of the Unity Party. He's not, but yet and still he supports Joseph Boakai undercover. There's something wrong with Unity Party that nobody wants to claim Unity Party as her own. I know people here say, like me, I support the president. I'm a seditious, 100%, no if or antibody. Here is my cup. Here is the pro-poor cup. Everybody knows.
You got dropped off as I give
it. Mr. Padmore is an ANC man. He supports the ANC. We know this. This guy comes here every day. He goes to the Unity Party meeting. He goes to the strategic planning. He goes to their parties. Then he comes out and say, "I'm not a Unity Party man." He point your party. He wipe his hands. He say, "I know Joseph Boakai. I think I like the way he walks, the way he talks, but I don't know him." Mr. Eastman, the Western cluster here. We are talking about when we were growing up in Manor River and Bummy Hills. They gave us free food as usual. They gave us those things, and we had no reason to. We didn't know what it was to even protest. Today, when LMC left Bummy, they left actually holes everywhere, and the joke was that it was no longer Bummy Hills but Bummy Holes. NIOC left Manor River, and there was a landslide. I think we saw that. They devastated the place. That there was a landslide, and there's a camp called No Way Camp. The whole camp was leveled, and nothing happened. Nobody was ever held accountable. Now we are going back to Bummy Hope 2.0. And those children that were born in NIOC and Bummy, because I grew up there, Edwin Snow, we all grew up there. And some of these children that saw the devastation are again in the negotiation here and giving their people the wrong end of the deal, Mr. Eastman.
Hey, well, Mr. Gayman, for us to evaluate this, why don't we step back a little bit? Let's take a macro view before we take a micro view into the Western cluster phenomena. There is a concept known as the resource curse, or the paradox of plenty, or other places known as the poverty of paradox. It explains the phenomenon where mineral-rich countries.
I actually got that book here.
Okay, the mineral-rich countries, they show less economic growth, less democracy, worse development outcomes than countries with fewer natural resources. It's a paradox, because you would think that the wealth of these minerals would bring about affluence and plenty for all, more revenue. But the reason this happens, they try to look into it, and they saw that a lot of times when these minerals are sought, other aspects of the economy are neglected, because all the capital, all the investment, labor, the best minds, everything is put into this, and other aspects of the economy are neglected. And they're prerequisite for development, things like education, and all those things are neglected. Hence, at the end of the day, you have less development than you if you didn't have those resources. So let's zoom. So what's going on with Bummy Hills? Bummy Hills, we knew that during the early 50s and 40s, and it started in the 40s, I think 50s, it was producing a lot of iron ore. But just as we said, we did not see Bummy developing with all the resources that was taken from all the iron ore. We didn't see it developing. It means we have not put together a program, a comprehensive policy of how we can channel back into these communities to benefit the communities. This has to be documented. It has to be a policy that we advocate. And if there is none such policy, then you will have this. It shouldn't be left to various administrations to decide how the money is spent. There needs to be the economists of the land, the social scientists, the politicians, the senators, the representatives. They need to sit down and we need to develop policies that we adhere to, instead of just trying to shoot from the hip. With this new agreement, similar things is there. The reason why any agreement you sign will have the same result is because you don't have a policy regarding how the money is to be channeled back to the community. And also, you will start taking your eye off the ball of other things that you need to address. Okay, so it is important that we develop rules and regulations of how all our minerals are mined, where the revenue should go, which deals should be signed and which should not be signed. Right. You know, before Tour allowed anyone to mine, he rather his mine stayed just like that. If his country was not going to reap the benefit. If you're going to take all my gold diamonds and I'm only going to get 10% and you're going to get 80%, let those resources stay there until we're ready to exploit it. I agree. So we have to make these kind of conscientious decisions before things are going to change. It's not going to change by magic. It's going to be a conscientious effort to come up with a policy that's going to benefit our people. And that's it. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Dualo, before I go to Mr. Padmore here, when I was in graduate school, there was this topic, this debate about growth without development versus development without growth. Okay, we agree that there cannot be development without growth, but in West Africa, we have growth without development. We have our budgetary items. We have the budgets are going up. We have everything that when you look from the peripheral, you say, well, we went from $80 million to $500 million. Now we're up to $1 billion. And when you look at the numbers, there should be something that will commensurate with the development, the lifestyle, the upward mobility of the folks in developing a middle class. But when you look at the inside, you find out that we are not doing either one. We are not developing. We don't have any growth. And where we have growth, we have no development.
Look, it's important, Mr. Gayman, and I love what Mr. Eastman said. We are a rent-seeking society. Now, I'm not going to detail. People Google the paper, close all the mines in Liberia, close them like yesterday. When we become a rent-seeking society, we do not take the core functions of government very seriously because it's influx of money that's not supposed to be there to begin with. But Mr. Gayman, you struck a great point. First of all, people must understand the distinction between growth and the distinction between development. Let me just try to miniaturize it very quickly. You see, I'll give you the South African model. Over a very long period of time, the white population in South Africa experienced growth because there was a small enclave. Even in Liberia, for a very long period, maybe 135 years, there was a small growth happening in Monrovia, but there was no development. Development implies the totality of the country. Growth only implies a small sector of that economy. So in Liberia, the reason why sometimes, remember in the 1960s and 1940s when they said, oh, Liberia is on par with Japan, we have growth without development. This is what they were talking about. There was small developments happening in Monrovia, but that development was not in terms of human capital development. It was, it is very easy for people to misconstrue a building to mean development. This is just the bottom of it. Sometimes people will ask the question, what has Mr. Boakai done? And the typical Liberian thing that refers to building a hospital. No, it's true development. It's policy implementation. And how you formulate those policies. This is where it comes into being. So we have to understand the distinction between growth and development. What we need in Liberia is development, not necessarily growth. And CDC has led people to believe that if you built a hospital in the middle of the forest without any preparation whatsoever, in order to stop that hospital, that constitutes development. It's not one and the same. You're actually lying to the people because that is not growth. That is not development. That is lunacy. I'll give it back to you.
Mr. Padmore.
But let me piggyback on something what Dualu was saying just now. There's something good that's coming out of this brouhaha in
yes. Yeah.
There was a study that was found that when you have protests, okay, unfortunately sometimes violent protests, but at least people protesting that they're not getting any benefit from the resources that is being taken from them. Studies show that the whole policy changes. When the people demonstrate and say this is not right, then they start fueling money back to the people. So sometimes this agitation, it has to happen. Yes. That's the only way the Burmese people will see something. So there's something good that has come out of this whole thing.
Well, this is why some of us who studied the sciences, the political sciences, the social sciences, there was a gentleman from the University of Chicago called Stanford Lyman, and he wrote the book about the political movements. So we're not going to be academic here, but Mr. Padmore, let's talk about what Mr. Dualo is talking about here. During the 60s and the late 50s, the 60s and before the 70s, when Martin Luther King began his struggle, he said there are two kinds of struggle, protests. Right. He did not want to violently engage the power, but he wanted to appeal to their consciences. Okay? I mean, the truth is so evident that you are guilty, that there's no way you can defend what you are doing, what's happening in the Western cluster here. It is so undefensible or indefensible that even the politicians themselves put their hands up and say, you know what, this is a bad deal. And some of us are saying now that we have agreed that this is a bad deal, let us not limit it to only the Western cluster. Let us go back now, the 68 bad concession agreement that Joseph Boakai gave us. Let's review all 68. Let this be like the George Floyd movement in the United States. This is a bad thing that happened to a bad guy. But because the way it happened, there's an opportunity for us to address many social issues, and we did that. Joseph Boakai, as president of the Senate, man who we say could have been a conscientious objector to say, hey, Madam President and the House and the Senate, these concessions are as president of the Senate. I can't sit here and let you guys sign this. If you sign this, I'm going to blow the whistle. Joseph Boakai sat there. Whatever came around, he got his cut. Mr. Padmore, tell us here, you as a man who wants well for our country, where Joseph Boakai has put you is tough for you to get out, and you're trying to dig us out of there. Tell us how CPP or the ANC is going to rescue Joseph Boakai by helping us maybe undo some of these to make Joseph Boakai look good, because he looked bad. 68, the guy was the president of the Senate, did absolutely nothing. He took his brown bag and look where we are. Help us. How do we help Joseph Boakai rescue his reputation?
It's always amazing, Mr. Gayman, when you speak. Because I keep hearing Joseph Boakai. Nobody mentions that the president was in the Senate. Nobody mentions that the vice president was in the Senate. Nobody want to talk about that. You know, like really? Look, how do we rescue people out of this? It's very simple. We hire people to review our concession agreements and to provide us with recommendations.
Read a paper, Mr. Padmore, you'll love it.
It's as simple as that. You take it out of the hands of politicians. Hey, give it to people, and they will do it right, and they will come up with clear recommendations how to move forward. That's how it's done.
Everywhere.
As simple as that.
Even the U.S. Congress.
Wait, listen to this. Mr. Padmore, I'm not going to let you off the hook here from the CPP, because the CPP, when the CDC was raising hell during the advocacy days, the Unity Party and the ANC, they got together and said, we need an independent person. And they guess who you brought in? You brought in Tony Blair. Is it Tony Blair, former president? He's neutral. Tony Blair came in. He brought his PTM or PMT terminal that they brought to Liberia. And today, even Snow, who was the bad boy for LA at the time, said this concession is so bad. 25 years locked in, unreviewable, unrevocable. We are locked in for 25 years, and it only turned out that ATM was partially owned by the guy who was actually reviewing the concept, Tony Blair. Mr. Eastman, for some reason, Liberia is just in the quagmire. We in a web. Somebody said, let's bring in somebody different from outside. They went and brought in their right-hand man. And then to make matters worse, the CPP and the ANC are coming back with clean hands. And guess what? When Comey was in trouble, guess who he brought back in? Tony Blair, his wife, and the same corporation that run the ATM terminal. Tell me, how do we get out of this?
That is wrong information.
ANC and the Unity Party has no moral standing here. Tell us here, how do we get out of this quagmire?
Yeah. Here's how we start to rely on our own local expertise. As my colleagues were mentioning here, we're not talking about politicians who want to profit from these deals. We're talking about economists and lawyers who will study the long run and effects of these deals and propose various options that will better benefit us. I don't know. We cannot keep depending on foreign expertise, like having the IMF tell us what to do or having the World Bank tell us what is best for us. They will give you from their perspective. It doesn't necessarily mean that should be gospel. We need to develop homegrown talent and expertise, and we do have some experts. But what has been, we tend not to bring them in and have them as part and parcel of every concession we consider. Once we start to rely on our own selves and not just arbitrary knowledge, I'm talking about specific expert knowledge in economics, in minerals, in all the different industries. You have them on board, you come up with a plan, you propose the policies, it's examined by the politicians, and then we vote on it. If we're going to always rely, and this is something I notice in Liberia when I go every year, and I see an increasingly number of foreign expertise being used, whereas Liberian experts have been sidelined. Why are we doing this? What are we? This is something, it is as if you are festering a sore, because in the long run, we have not developed our people to think critically, to think about these things, to grow their expertise, and you're giving it to a foreigner who take that money and carry it on. And if they don't do a good job, you can't tell if they're doing a good job or not, because you don't have the expertise to tell if they're a good job or not. So they will do a job that benefits them. It could be very superficial, and you are stuck with it for eternity. So our reliance on foreign expertise has to stop. We need to use Liberians who love Liberia, who know that the only place they have to go and live is Liberia, so they will put everything they have into it. And if you can and put people in charge who will look at it professionally. If we're going to put people in charge who trying to get what they can, then they will leave the country high and dry. So these are the things that we need to do to change things and stop relying on foreign expertise telling us what to do.
Mr. Gayman, you're muted, sir.
Just leave him muted.
We're going to segue into.
No, Mr. Gayman, can I say that on 1 minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Eastman is absolutely right. Look, every other country, even the US here, I'm of the conviction. Maybe one of the topic I cover in the paper is before something goes to the legislature, because we're not picking our best and brightest to go to the legislature. There must be cookie cutter system where it is reviewed by experts, and the expert gave them recommendation. They can pick from that recommendation. Even you create a template. Just a quick story. Look, I used to work as a senior proposal analyst for Racing many years back, over 15 years ago, and we have something called GIV review. This is expert review and validated. In a contract over 200 million, even if I'm the senior analyst on that contract, it can't go through. Even when I'm done, it has to get reviewed 5 times by experts to make sure, because these are guys that are actually run projects. They say, oh, Dwalu, if you're giving the Australian Navy $50 million to put doors on their ships, Every 6 years, the door get rusted. These are the things you got because they've seen some things before. It has to be expert review. It doesn't mean that people that aren't doing it are dumb. I know nothing about law. I know nothing about what you do, Mr. Gilman. You put me there, I will fail. But when you take people in the legislature, most of whom who have not read a single paper in their life, and you expect them to understand very complicated contracting operations that are actually being put together by Harvard professors, the Harvard contract lawyers. Also, how can you guys understand this? Some of the papers that I created are written here. Some of them are 2,000 pages. And each paper you go through it, how you expect Papi Solo from the CDC to understand that paper in the legislature?
And that's why Joseph Boakai didn't understand when he was there, and we got a 68 concession agreement. Now let's segue into number 2 here, and welcome to Glenn. Glenn Jones, the genius, is here. That's my girl from Bassa. She loved me. I love her, but she loved Dr. What's his name? Dr. CDC country giant Joe Bekube Wea. She's Lord George Weah. Now let's go to this. Mr. Padmore, I want to have a disclaimer here that nobody here wishes ill health on anybody, not even on your worst enemy. But we have to be honest here. Joseph Boakai is sick, really sick.
There you go.
We need to discuss this, because Mr. Dualo usually say we need to scrutinize our leaders. We need to put them through the ringer before we get up there, so we don't say we didn't know. Ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing all the telltale signs of an elderly statesman who has passed his prime, is seriously sick. I think he had a stroke, and we can see he had all the signs, classic signs of stroke. And I'm going to show you, we're going to dissect.
You know the signs of stroke?
Yes, I do. Mr. Eastman, let's be
good.
honest. You are the statesman here. You've been around. You have seen diplomacy. You've seen foreign services. This one is bad.
Okay. To be fair to the ambassador, to the former VP, I haven't. I don't know if any of you have in front of you a bill of health or a examination of his health conditions, and so anything short of that is speculative. But we do know there is some reason to have some concern, since we understand he was in the hospital for a couple of days. So, and of course, the health of any of our statesmen, our leaders, is a concern for everybody. I appreciate the concern, but I'm not going to say definitively what's wrong. I understand he has come to the U.S. to go look into that, and his ability to continue. So you can be of advanced age and perform. It will be taxing, because Liberia needs a lot of different things. You see, in 1980, when the PRC took over, the institutions were there, the buildings were there, everything was there. All they had to do was walk into the offices. Okay, everything was already set up. Today, Liberia, these things have to be built because they were destroyed. They started being built under the Ellen administration, but there is a long way to go. So if you don't bring in people who know how to build, who know how to organize, we will not be going anywhere, because there's a lot to be built right now. I've seen people, administrators, they come in, some of them come from schools and universities with their degrees with no experience. and they sit them and put them at the helm of these organizations. Well, it will work in that way because the institution is already there. But when these same people had to come and had to build from scratch, they couldn't do anything. So it's going to be taxing, and he's going to have to bring a team that can build. And once he can manage his team, he's going to provide leadership. But the management aspect of it will also be taxing. And once he has a team that he can manage, then he can do it. I wouldn't fault him for his age. I think it is discrimination, but his health, it will be taxing on his health. But if he's committed to do this, well, then I wouldn't stop any soldier from fighting for his country. So I give him the green light.
Mr. Padmore, we've been seeing videos lately when the VP was put on stage, was staged from the hospital. The camera shot from the propagandist from the Unity Party folks shows Joseph Boakai crossing his leg, and they show him waving his hand to show that his hands are moving like a mechanical object. But what they didn't show was when he got up, and the CDCN camera folks were there. When he got up, they focused on his lower, the lower part, the extremities of his body. Joseph Boakai could hardly take 4 steps, and he had to be helped. And when you look at Joseph Boakai's video and juxtapose that with Paul Biya, the president of Cameroon, when he came to the presidential summit here, where he sat down, couldn't move, and his handler was telling him, Mr. President, you are next. He said, where am I? What am I doing here? This is where we are. Joseph Boakai could barely walk. His handlers came to him. In fact, his 5 folders, the papers, he couldn't remove the paper. They didn't know where they were. People had to come and reshuffle his paper. And when he was reading, you could barely hear him. And I'm looking at the DSF file here, the medical journal, Signs and Evidence of Stroke. And number one on that list is paralysis, the limbs, difficulties walking, difficulty moving, difficulty speaking, loud and clear. These were all classic signs that we saw. But the propaganda, they didn't show that, but we have that. Mr. Padmore, we have a sick man on our hand here. We need to pray for Joseph Boakai.
Well, I believe I'm the only healthcare professional on this panel right now.
Thank you.
So ask me the signs and symptoms of stroke. I will tell you.
It's right here. From John Hopkins, right here.
Just because you're reading words, don't mean that you understand what the people are saying over there. You can hear me, an engineering book right now, I can read it to you. And me, I understand anything over there.
Thank
John
you.
Hopkins
words mean different things.
Source.
Words mean different things in different professions. Just leave that other topic. Look, let's clear some things. The first thing is that the ambassador did not have a stroke. He did not have a stroke. Nobody has a stroke and will leave the hospital that early. That's the first thing. There are 2 ways you have a stroke. Either you have a blockage or you have a rupture. Either one, it won't be cleared up that fast, and for the doctor to release you from the hospital that swiftly. So Boakai did not have a stroke. Okay, he might have had what's called a TIA. I won't go too definite. It's something that resembles a stroke. It can happen, and you can recuperate over a very short period of time, a day or 2. And that still doesn't look like what Joseph Boakai had. Joseph Boakai is an elderly man. Even dehydration can put him in the hospital where he on IV. It's simple as that. But it doesn't. And you see, when you get into the weeds of what happened to him, what didn't happen to him, then you escape what we should be talking about. What we should be talking about, our country is so far behind and has so much issues. Does Joseph Boakai has the stamina? He might have the desire, he might have the education, he might have the experience, but does he have the stamina to run such a country that is so deeply enthralled in corruption and incompetency that your hand has to literally be in every single part to control it. Because when you let things go, we saw what happened when Ellen let things go. She said corruption of empire. Because at a certain point, she thought she had overcome it. As soon as she started to withdraw her hands and allow those agencies to run by themselves, she saw corruption just grow right back. That for me, that is my greatest concern. It's not whether Joseph Boakai is a good man. It's not whether if he's competent. It's not if he's honest. It's not if he's smart or experienced. It's does he have the stamina? Look, when we wake up in Liberia, when you get to work 8 o'clock in the morning, America, the US, has already been up and operating for 6 hours. So you can wake up. A president cannot expect to come to work 8 o'clock in the morning. You late. Washington already been up for 6 hours. When you leave the office at 4 o'clock, China still has 6 hours. When you wake up in the morning, China has been up for 6 hours. When you leave the executive mansion 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Washington D.C. still have 6 hours to go. You cannot, as a president, you cannot think you can come and work for 8 hours Monday through Friday and get the job done. It's not possible. The world has to keep moving around. And so you are talking about at least 12 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. Out of here, it's hard for me. When I think about somebody who is approaching that age, for me, it sounds impossible to do. And to be on your game, you have to be on your game. This is not automated. Joe Biden can do it because this country is so developed, is so well built that Joe Biden can do it. Liberia doesn't have those stop and balances that you think it will just run automatically till you wake up. That is my concern. Can the old man do it? And it is fair game for us to discuss that. Can he do it? No country will move forward. People will not invest if they don't believe that the president will be around for 6 years, that the president will be competent for 6 years. You pouring millions and millions of dollars into a country that depends on the president, not the system. It depends on the president to be true and true. And people are nervous. I'm nervous. And I'm part of the opposition. And people get upset when I say I'm nervous. The Papa need to show us something. And just showing meager pictures that he's sitting and laughing, it's not. I need more. I need my confidence built up.
Great. Mr. Dualu, I know Mr. Padmore just burst your bubble here because you are a true Boakai supporter. You think Boakai can still run the 100-yard sprint? You think he can beat Joseph Boakai? Joseph Boakai can beat Joseph Boakai? We should know Joseph Boakai against Joseph Boakai, and Joseph Boakai will lose. We know that. So now here we are. You, a patriot, or supposed to be a patriot, someone that love the country more than they love their candidate. Like me, I love my country more than I love my candidate. If President Weah was not the best of the best in Liberia, I would have never supported him. But this guy, President Weah's competence, his love for country, his gravitas makes him the best, one of the best presidents that Liberia has, in fact, the best president Liberia has ever produced. Now, Mr. Dualu, tell me here, based on what Mr. Padmore just said, that at that age, do you think Mr. Boakai should be honest and say, Mr. Cummings, I think I got one leg here and one leg somewhere else. I won't tell you where that other where is. Mr. Cummings, you are young, you are energetic. Will you be my vice president just in case I slip and my other leg go to where the other leg is? Do you think there should be a possibility that conversation should be had? We are all Liberian that we're talking about because George, we have won the best team. We want to beat the best team. And the best team out there, we want to kill two birds with one stone. We want to beat Cummings and Boakai together. So we are praying that Boakai now, based on his health condition, will pick up the phone and say, Mr. Cummings, come and join me and be my backbone. What do you think about that? What do you think about that notion or the concept of Boakai picking up the phone and calling Cummings and say, come, let's take on this guy because this man is too tough for me. He's too powerful just for me alone. He made it clear. He said it. He said one man cannot beat George Weah.
Mr. Gayman, allow me to talk. I want to say this to Mr. Padmore. Everything he said, they make perfect sense. There is no arguing to the contrary. I'm not going to argue against a single point Mr. Padmore made because they are all legitimate. There is no question about that. But I want to point to you, Mr. Gayman. President Weah Barely works 3 hours a day. He's failed this country massively. The legitimate questions about Mr. Boakai must be asked. Look, if Mr. Boakai, Honorable Boakai called Mr. Cummings today, I'll be the happiest Liberian alive. I want that so badly. In fact, the CDC would just die. There's no way President Weah can win more than 20% of the vote if they lose the County the way it's going. The cap would be 25% in these elections. Mark my word, if you want to put $1,000 on them, Mr. Gayman, we can do that. We can go ahead. You cannot go more than 25% in these elections.
One round.
Okay, yeah, be so. Let me finish. But Mr. Padmore says so many things that are right. I'm not going to argue against it. But my thing is, yes, what I would say to Mr. Padmore. The presidency requires a lot of time, a lot of energy. I agree with you. We want that transformation for Liberia. But my reasoning for Mr. Boakai, I believe Mr. Boakai is the one person that truly understands the intricacies of Liberia and our problems and how to deliver those problems because he's actually working the belly of this beast. Now, whether he's going to have that energy, it's a fair game. What his health issue, it's a fair game. We have to talk about everything that concerns the country. And this is the kind of conversation I want to have because let's dig. Maybe Mr. Padmore can say, Dwalo, listen, you're supporting Mr. Boakai, but look at it from this angle. Not where Mr. Padmore believes I'm his enemy because I support another political party. It's crazy. Let's talk about it. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. Look, Mr. Boakai is 78 years old. Check. Mr. Boakai, how old is it? You're muted. 71?
We just celebrated his 79th.
He's 79 years old. Check. Mr. Boakai has some health conditions, which is inevitable when you get to that age. Check. There are complications that will come about. Check. Should we question this when it comes to the presidency? Because it could cause serious sovereignty risk issues if Mr. Boakai becomes incapacitated when he goes to the presidency. These are all legitimate questions. But is it also possible that he could deliver? I don't know the answers to this. This is why we have these conversations. And I love what Mr. Padmore said. And I agree with most of the stuff he's saying. But that's something that we have to talk about. And I will give it to Mr. Eastman.
Mr. Eastman, I see Mr. Padmore is lobbying for the vice presidency. Mr. Dwalo have finally reconciled his fate that Joseph Boakai is going down and he needs rescue. They are seeing one-round victory. We're not talking about just regular victory. One-round victory. President Weah one-round victory is now self-evident that now the two folks who said, I can only change this country at the presidency level are now negotiating their fate. You know, in counseling or even in death, when we're doing grief counseling, there's something called denial. But the final stage is negotiation. Then you accept. That's where they are now. They have realized the fact that this George Weah man is a giant. Joseph Boakai made it clear that one man cannot beat President Weah. He made it clear. One person cannot beat this guy. So we're going to do it like we're doing in Nukuta. We'll jump you. The cousins all going to come. We'll jump you and we'll put pepper in your eye and beat you. That's what they're trying to do. So now tell me, for the man who has been in government since 1971, he served Tubman, Talbot, Doe, Taylor, Sawyer, Perry, Elling, and you name it. We talk about 10 presidents. Pomako. We added all of these people. 10 presidents, 54 years in government. He has not done anything, not even in 4 years. Now he says, the 54 years I have served government, that one didn't count. But the last 6 years, I'm going to change the refine. He said, the first day, I'm going to pave all the roads in the country. Do you think he got dementia here, or something dementia, or something going on here?
Well, let me tell you this, man, Jerome. You know, you can vote for somebody or you can vote against somebody else. This is an election where an incumbent is running again. That means what this election will really be is an evaluation of the WIA administration. However the vote turns out will either be an approval of things to remain the same and to continue, or it will be a rejection of the way things are going. This election is really about the WIA administration, not so much about the personality of Cummings or WIA, because those are the alternatives, or Gonglo, but it is more about, has the CDC met the expectations of the people? One, do the people want the status quo as it is today to continue? Two, are the people feeling that they are going to be better off tomorrow with this administration, or they want to try something completely new? Three, those are the questions that are going to be coming up when they go to that ballot box. And as we draw closer and closer to the elections, it will be that is what is going to be very clear. Do we want more of the same, or we want them sweeping new people in there? That is going to be the question. So as much they're trying to come up with a dream team, the opposition trying to come up with the dream team, or they come up splintered, in the end, it's going to be about the performance of this administration. So I still maintain, I believe it's the CDC's to lose. That means their performance will determine the outcome. But these personalities, the opposition, as much as they did see some success, there were signs of success, but that can always be turned around. So these, as we draw closer to the elections, it's going to be very glaring whether CDC has met or is failing the people, and that is how the votes are going to be swayed.
Great.
Less than 8% of the promises.
Real quick, let's segue. Now that we're talking about vote, we are talking about pathway to the presidency. Now let's look at the Prince Johnson phenomena and his recent outburst. Mr. Padmore, you like Prince Johnson. You gave Prince Johnson $55,000 for his
$60,000.
You gave Prince Johnson $60,000 for his university. You have given him more under the table. We understand that. You have gone to Prince Johnson. Your man has gone to Prince Johnson nicodemously by midnight. Have met with him, beg his indulgence. He wanted him to be vice president, if not vice president. Can his son, Jeremiah Combs, be his vice president? And all of those things were no. Now here you are. Prince Johnson had an outburst. He went off on the CDC government, said things that did not exist. So here we are. When Prince Johnson was doing his rambling, I could see, even though you were offline, I couldn't see you, I called you, but I could imagine you were smiling from left ear to right ear. That Prince Johnson had finally blew his gasket. Where are we at this point? What you make of Prince Johnson? Will you accept Prince Johnson as a prodigal son?
Look, Mr. Cummings has said very clearly, we are building a big tent, and we will welcome any Liberian that is focused and that is dedicated on moving Liberia forward. Simple statement. He didn't cut anybody off. He didn't put in any other roadblock than that. If you are dedicated and focused in moving Liberia forward, you are welcome to this big tent. And that includes Prince Johnson. I will say this though, and you can write it down, take a picture, I don't care. CDC, the roadmap for CDC is through NIMBA. No NIMBA, no CDC. It's a simple. CDC has no other pathway to the presidency but through NIMBA. If you take away NIMBA, CDC setting 25-30%, and they have no way of adding anything to it. And that, my friend, is the fact. And I don't care how you're twisted, I don't care how you're turning, it is the fact. And we know that. And we will cover that any means possible.
Mr. Dualo, you know, this is why CDC is going to beat y'all in the first round. Because first of all, there is nobody in Liberia that flip-flops like Cummings. Cummings, between a tilapia and a pancake, it got to be a tie because he flips and flops, whether you tilapia, flip and flop, or you pancake. This is the man who came, he said he's the man of clean hands. And he said Liberia's problem was, according to him, according to Albert Einstein, you cannot do the same thing over and over and expect different results. Yet and still, he has gone, not even gone back, but he went to the bottom of the deck, went back to Charles Taylor, brought Charles Taylor people that he said were corrupt, they were murderers, they were killers. Now he compounding that by the man that Prince Johnson they call murderer. He is now quoting Prince Johnson saying now he got a beat tent of murderers and killers and corrupt people. Mr. Dualo, I know you are hurting because when you look at President Weah, his popularity, his accomplishment, his competence, you are in the 22nd hour here. We're talking about October. You got no time. How do you deal with the Prince Johnson phenomenon?
It's not about Prince Johnson. Mr. Gayman, let me tell you something. You're not a numbers guy. I am. I'll give you some numbers. At CDC's height, when CDC were most popular, 2005, what was the percentage in the first round? It was below 30%. 2011, below 30%. When they formed a collaboration, all the vote that they could possibly muster before they came to power, around 38%. That means the maximum that CDC could get with all the popularity, with everything, was less than 38%. I want you to think about this a little bit. CDC has ruled all the by-elections. They wouldn't win one thing. In fact, President, we have put your hands on nothing. They've literally lied to the MPP boys and kept them in the gutter for over the last 6 years. They'll have a bunch of unlimited number of disenchanted seditions. What do you think is the probability if Nima Kante goes that they even get more than 20% of the vote? Zero. I doubt if Prince Johnson stays on his curve now. I want to say this though. Prince Johnson is a master manipulator. And you look, say what you want to say about it, man. He's a brilliant strategist. He knows how to play his game in Liberia. He understands Liberian politics. I know at a very minimum, Prince Johnson will get at least $10 million before he even come back to CDC because he needs the $7.5 million, the Nima County Development Fund, and Prince Johnson will get an additional minimum $3 million out of Joshua for himself before he can give him his vote. Even with that, 2017 election, the second place in Nima County first round was who? With Joseph Boakai. John Weah came third in Nima County. Prince Johnson won in Nima County. Let me tell you something. If George Weah wins more than 25% of these votes, I will be shocked beyond belief because every number that I've picked in a row, I don't see him going over 20% if he loses Nima. I don't see him going over 25%, even if he gets Nima County. This man is a gunner. Stop worrying about first round. In fact, let me say this to you. There is a high degree of probability he may not even go to the second round. It's possible.
Mr. Eastman, when we are talking about, political mirage or delusion, whatever that Dualu is drinking in that cup, it definitely it has a psychedelic impact. You see, the psychedelic boy, he was born during the psychedelic days. Like President Weah said, he said, I did absolutely nothing and they elected me. Now that I have done all of these things, and if I want to list them, it would take all day. I'm not even going to go there. Nimba County, first of all, we won 14 out of 15 counties. So I want you to recognize that. The President that we are talking about, the human magnet, the policy wonk, Liberia's most successful president. And we're going to begin to tell the people, do you want to go back to the Joseph Boakai days where he said he was a parked car that was parked for 12 years, no gasoline, no engine, that car is done. Do you want to go back to those days where he said they have billions and they squandered? We are not saying anything. This is, if we were in a court of law, this is the criminal's own admission. He said, we squandered. Do you want to go back to the squandered days of Joseph Boakai, where he says, it was so bad that he lived on loan. I lived on loan for IB Bank. 5 times, he said, I went there, live on loan. And then his own right-hand man, the late cousin of Bronsky King, said, don't be fooled. That Joseph Boakai is not a regular Joe. Joseph Boakai got $2.7 million in 2000, from 2013 to 2017. He made almost $9 million US just in those 3 years. And the entire hospital, the entire county of Lofa got $3 million. The Lofa Community College got $2.9 million. Joseph Boakai alone got $9 million. Joseph Boakai is not a regular Joe. Joseph Boakai is the failed politicians that basically been living on the dole, on the welfare state for 54 years of his life. He had lived off the sweat of the poor Liberian people. He's a leech, political leech. He cannot afford to get off that neighbor string, that connection that feeds him. So, Mr. Eastman here, tell me, does Joseph Boakai or the opposition, I'm talking about Mr. Padmore and Dualo, they are coming back for a second term. If this possible, I mean, just please be honest with them whether there's any possibility that the Liberian people will say we want to go back to Joseph Boakai days.
Good question. But again, let's examine how CDC came to power. CDC is a coalition. They finally figured it out. George Weah ran in 2005, and Ellen beat him. He ran as VP in 2011, and they figured it out, formed a coalition, and they won the power. What is in that coalition? You have the NPP party, a part of Jewel Howard, the Charles Taylor party. That's the NPP party. That's part of that coalition. In that coalition also is the endorsement of Prince Johnson's party. Prince Johnson was part and parcel of that coalition. So now if we see the disintegration of that coalition, because it's not only Prince Johnson that is trying to use some leverage here. We also hear some noise in the NPP on some dissatisfaction. So they're going to have to, they're going to have to come back to, and also I thank you, also Alex Tyler. So the CDC is going to have a lot of fence mending to do. They got to mend fences if they're going to be successful, because you do need all these people. That's what ensured your victory. Okay, unless CDC is so strong now, their performance has been so overwhelming that they don't need anyone else to support them now because their
Later.
projects and whatever transformation of the country is so brilliant that they don't need anybody. But if they still need the NPP or this, and they still need Alex Tyler and they still need Prince Johnson, then it is a concern when we hear these things going on. And so, again, I say it was not going to be so much about the ability or inability of the opposition. It's going to be more about what the CDC does between now and election. That is going to be the decisive factor.
Great. Now, in politics, I think Mr. Padmore knows this, and Dualo understands this because he's from that part of the world. And you know this. There's something in American politics, I think politics as a whole, we call the bullet puppet. The guy who owns the pulpit, the man who has the power, the man who is an incumbent. If the guy who can make deals, man who can sign a concession agreement, a man who can sign an agreement, who can bind the country, who can bind the thing. The opposition are wannabes. They can't do anything. So let's segue into our last point here. A few months ago, there was this huge campaign in Washington, D.C. about sanctions on Liberia and Liberian citizens, and those people who have been considered dead in the water, DOA. Today, we heard that there were 3 major partisans from this administration that were sanctioned. We are talking about Mr. Nathaniel McGill, Serena Cephas, and we're talking about Bekube Jr. from the port. Lately, we have been seeing something that is a new phenomenon in Liberia. This Nathaniel Fallow McGill. This guy is a political enigma. Mr. Dualo, I'm seeing something here. This is something that we have never seen, we never heard, but it is coming through. What is the power of Nathaniel McGill? We saw him on several showings lately in Magibi County, and yesterday his arrival into Bond County was a tsunami. Talk to me, Mr. Dualo. What are you seeing? What do you think is going on there?
Mr. Gayman, I want you to buckle your seatbelt. I'm going to tell you this. Almost 6 years ago, Nathaniel McGill did not have a pot to piss in. He could barely pay $35 per month for rent. This guy was being chased by landlords from Wayland Doodle compound. Could barely pay $35 for rent. I don't want to talk about his wife because she came here in Massachusetts, but it's a whole different story. He comes to power. Over the span of 4 years, the first thing is, he didn't have a pot to piss in. He goes to a bank after he comes to power 6 months. He claimed he borrowed $200,000 from the bank, with which collateral nobody knows. East International, he's stealing heavily from the people of the Republic of Liberia. He goes to this location, hires bands, a bunch of poor people that you kept so hungry. And a week before you come to them, you distribute bag of rice. You put your picture on Gary. This is what you think of them. You take your picture, you put it on Gary bags. You put it on bag of rice. You distribute it, and you call like a coup. You say your account will go on the football field. Anywhere in Liberia, you, Mr. Gayman, if you went to Liberia right now, you did the same thing, there will be 3,000 people present. That means absolutely. Nathaniel McGill is a dangerous criminal, and this criminal is trying to protect himself, and the only way he thinks he's going to get protection is through the Senate. But let me say this to him. Honorable Boakai is going to be president come 2024 January. Anybody that's going to be sanctioned, you want to be addressed aggressively. In fact, the Americans will take you. They're not going to protect. McGill's not going to win. And I will say this to people in Magibi County. You eat that money that you own some money. In the words of Joel Howard Taylor, it's stolen money. You eat it. When they give it to you, you eat it. McGill cannot win. He can do whatever it takes. Every single dime he's using, he stole from the Liberian people. How can a man that could barely pay $35 per month for rent now can afford millions? Does that make sense to anybody? When they say they harmonize the salaries in Liberia, he would barely make anything more than $5,000. This man lived for 2 years, never used his salary. And he said his wife was stealing from his account. You remember the case. How was he living? He's an unrepentant criminal, and this criminal deserves to be in jail, not in the Senate. I'll give it back to you, Mr. Eastman.
Mr. Padmore, you live in the West. I like the Unity Party folks. They like to use words. In America, when they call you criminal, that means you have been found guilty in a competent court of jurisdiction. They have found you, they have tried you, you have gone through the jurisprudence. We're talking about law and order. That has not happened. Nathaniel McGill has never been tried, has never been adjudicated in a court of law. He has all reasons. He's entitled to all the benefits that all Liberians are until you are found guilty. In fact, Mr. Cummings was asked the same question. You have David McIntosh, you have Louis Brown, you have these characters that unsavory characters that nobody want to tell with the temple stake here. This is the man. These are the men that you are now cultivating into the ANC. And what did he say? He said, until they are adjudged guilty by the court, they are not criminals. And when I become president, if they are found guilty, they will be turned over to the law. That is what Mr. Cummings said. Mr. Cummings being brilliant, being smarter than the JMB people, have never caught anybody that have not been adjudicated criminal, but they are doing it. Mr. Padmore, will you consider Mr. McGill a criminal as the JMB people who are afraid of him because he's into their territory? Remember Nukwe was the vice president of this president. He was the vice presidential candidate on the losing Joseph Boakai. So the man is going to Magibi, where Joseph Boakai hope to get votes, and see that McGill is cleaning house. I mean, the boy is a sweeper. Talk to me.
So I'm glad you talked about the law, because there are three very cardinal things about the law that you seem to have escaped. The first one is that everyone deserves their day in court. The second one is that you have a right to face your accuser. And the third, which is written in our Constitution, that everybody has a right to make a living. Nathaniel McGill was suspended from his job, forced to resign. Nathaniel McGill has not been given his day in court. Nathaniel McGill has not been given the opportunity to face his accuser. Why? This government will have to answer that question between now and October. They will have to answer. Why are you shielding this man when he's been accused of taking the Liberian people money? Is this what you are going to do for the next 6 years? If you're doing it now and you're begging for us to put you back, is this what you are going to do for the next 6 years? This government has not tried one person for corruption in over 5 years. Nobody has been tried for corruption. And is this so? What message are you sending Liberian people? This is what they're going to have to answer. Look, my message to Nathaniel McGill is that, Chief, if I were you, demand your day in court, go there, explain your side, and free yourself. The thing that you're doing, that you think, say, oh, if I get elected to government, then I am shielded. It's a myth. Okay? That's what that is. Because you will be investigated. And if you are found culpable, you will be tried. And if you are tried, you will face prosecution. It's as simple as that. That is the new Liberia we're stepping into. That is the new Liberia for all Liberians. And this is not just, look, let me take this beyond McGill. This is not just to McGill. This is to every single Liberian, whether you own CDC side, whether you now force yourself in the opposition, thinking that, oh, if Coming win or Boakai win are safe. Sorry for you. You get a shock on your left. if you have stolen from the Liberian people, if you have injured the Liberian people in any way, and people can come out and make their case and and take you to court, and you are prosecuted, Chief, you're on your own. You're on your own. That is no Liberia. And this is the only Liberia that will move all of us forward. This is the only Liberia that will create that space that we all can be proud of. You know, I feel sorry for Mr. McGill.
Why?
Because not only is he heading in the wrong direction, but people are even pushing him further. People are pushing him further. And if he is not careful, he will be left holding the bag for many other people.
Right.
He's shielding people along the way right now. And if he's not careful, he will be left holding the bag for many people.
Mr. Eastman, people are accusing Mr. Cummings of money laundering. They are accusing Mr. Cummings of incompetence. People are wanting to know, they said somebody stole $75,000, $70K from him. People want to know, how did Cummings, where did he withdraw $70,000 US? Which bank? How he got that money? Is the money being laundered, illegal money? This man have not given us any reason to believe that he has transparency of any kind. By now, on this platform, my brother Padmore told me, he said, Jerome, within 72 hours, this thing will be resolved. You will find out how the money was withdrawn, who the money was given to, who stole the money. 72 hours. We are going into the third month. We don't know how Cummings got a bunch of money in the back of a pimpin'. $70,000 US, and that was just, some people said, with the tip of the iceberg. Some people said $250,000. Which bank in Liberia will give you, or in the United States, will give you $250,000 US withdrawn on the spot with no trace? Mr. Cummings is treading a dangerous line. Today, the young man was arrested. He said, my folks, they're lying on me, but there's more to this story, and we are waiting to hear and see what's happening. On that line, should we persecute Mr. Cummings on money laundering, where we have, where the proof we have is that we have a whole bunch of money somewhere? He admitted that $75,000 was stolen from him. How he got that money? Can you talk to her? Would it be fair to Cummings for us to charge him with money laundering?
Wow. Well, my buddy, Mr. Gilman, first of all, $75,000 is not a lot of money.
Exactly.
Okay? That is very common for people to have that kind of money in the bank. People who are business people, not a lot of money.
No. Withdraw one day? So how did he do it? What? Just show me the paper.
If you're about to embark on a campaign, or if you're about to export goods or anything, you will have that money on hand. Mr. Cummings is a long-time businessman. He's that kind of money, and it's not a lot of money. You and I have that kind of money in the bank right now, and you know it. So it's not that the money laundering aspect of it. I think that the part of it that is the way the money was handled, knowing the crime rate and the things that go on in Liberia, I don't think that money was handled right. There was a misstep in the procedure of handling that money. Definitely, that is something they need to look at. But what is concerning for me, and what should be concerning for all of us on this panel, is that do we have a policy on in Liberia of how we should do with people who receive sanction from the United States or these are big powers? If you don't have policies to govern your country, which way the wind blows you, this way you're going to go. There should be a policy. So if you get sanctioned, this is what Liberia does. Okay, we're talking about why these exploits of the mineral resource in our country are not going channeled to the right places. It's because of no policies. Likewise, if we don't have policies of foreign policies and stuff like that, we're not going to go to the desired place. So this, as you said, Mr. McGill was suspended. I think he needs to be given a chance to prove himself guilty or innocent. Either that, or the government comes up with a policy that we will ignore these indications, will ignore these declarations, and allow the people to perform, or we'll just ask the people. I think it's unfair to ask somebody to suspend somebody without investigation. Where do you do that? Where do people get suspended and there's no investigation? You know, we've been through war before by making colossal errors, marginalizing people, ignoring people's rights and stuff like that, that led to a colossal failure of our country. These are the small things that begin to lead to that. I think for all reason of the health of our government, we need a policy that would address something like this. If we don't have it, things like this add up. I'm all of a sudden I'm seeing his popularity in Bong as well as in Margibi. He's definitely gaining tracks, but we've seen this before. We've seen this movie play out before, and we need to have safeguard mechanisms because people can take advantage of us. You and I, Michael and Dwalo, politicians, people who are in higher order, they can take advantage of us. If we don't have the policies to stop them from doing this, they will be allowed to even abuse power. We cannot allow people to abuse power. It is not healthy for any administration. That's what leads to wars. That will lead to human rights violations. That will lead to a lot of problems. So it is my concern that this is not being addressed. It's just allowed to just lie open, like a dead man in the street, and everybody there walking by the dead man. Nobody's doing anything about it. There has to be policies regarding sanctions. There has to be a way for these guys to vindicate themselves. There has to be a way we're going to protect our citizens. If somebody is accusing them, we just simply suspend them without investigation. No, there's everything wrong with that whole picture, Mr. Gilman. I cannot say anything else, but everything is wrong with that picture.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. We are going to be going to our comment section where we all can address some of these comments. And then after the comment, I would like Mr. Dualdo to come in and address the U.S. ambassador's comment when he was asked on OKFM as to what was the intent of the sanction when he said it was not meant to be judicial. It was not meant to be punitive. It was meant for the change of behavior. If that is the case, change of behavior, why are we focusing on the punitive aspect of it and the judicial when he says it's non-judicial, it was political and for behavior change? So if we could get some of our comments, I want us to be out of here just in time because we have a great show, another show coming up. And at 8 o'clock, you gotta tune in 8 o'clock. Everything we are discussing here, we're gonna be looking at them from a legal point of view, where the legal minds are going to be here to actually dissect and put some legality to this. So focus on Liberia at 8 o'clock. We're going to have the legal issues surrounding all of these, the Western cluster, the caches of arms, the presidential runoff. Whatever happens, if George Weah were running for president, something happens to him. We know he has a vice president. But what's about the opposition? If Cummings, something happens to Cummings, is there any clause or anything within our system that will give a clear indication as to succession? We're going to be discussing at 8 p.m. Today, actually 7 p.m. today, so we want you to tune in. So let's go to some of our comments. We'll address the comments, and then Mr. Dualo can address the ambassadors if we can. Mr. Padmore, you want to read?
Sure. U.S. Treasury sanctioned against Liberian officials. Oh, this is from Emmanuel Jackson. U.S. Treasury sanctioned against Liberian officials is protecting their monetary supply against money laundering, the practice under CDC leadership. They don't care that it's the U.S. Treasury. Who the Liberian people vote for is up to them to vote for their future. And this is from Kendrick W. As educated Liberians, wouldn't we better serve if we discuss options and solution-based topics rather what's being discussed? Thank you for your view, Kendrick. Glendy Jane Jr. says, Dr. Gayman, this is so unfortunate for you. Sam Wallow here is saying, Jerome, you are telling a fairy tale. No one is taking the bait. And Swamapu says that by then JB has been in stroking mode since he was a young man. He has always been soft-spoken. Sam Wallow again said there is a video of VP Boakai, I'm guessing, program earlier this week. For those who don't trust pictures, go watch it. Seattle T. Townsend says, where is the other leg now, Gayman? Say you said one. What you say one where?
One leg somewhere. Where the other leg? She asking you.
Swam Mapu again says, CDC will remain in scare mode until 1023. He's remaining in the race until Liberia is rescued in 2023. ANCNs can something. I get that part. Cristiano King says, so you guys want to sell pig to us in bag? Because whenever talk about the health of this vegetable, then yeah, let's go. I don't even want to go down the road, man. Solomon Fofana says, gentlemen, I tell y'all for free, President Weah will defeat the oppositions because the opposition disappointed the masses. Maybe because of the split. That says a lot. That says a lot there. Seattle T. Townsend says, correct, Mr. Eastman. This election will be a referendum on GMW and this CDC administration. The NMO. Melvin Joseph says, Mr. Jerome, Joseph Boakai never served 50 years in government. Besides, we had never won election with Congress for democratic change, but coalition for democratic change. We have failed. Marky Ball says, exactly. Political theater because Africa's government is a gold mine. Until politicians are paid according to the state's GDP, we'll keep seeing leeches trying to be politicians. Emmanuel Jackson, Gayman, be concerned about Jeremiah Kpankun entering the race for MDR and not VP Boakai. And that is it. Solomon Fofana again said, Comey is not a marketable product. His political career is over.
That's correct.
Political career again. Sam Wallow, Joe Biden is scheduled to announce his re-election bid after the State of the Union address. That will be a huge positive for VP Boakai, as it will blunt all of this criticism, as you can criticize Joseph Boakai based on ageism without saying the same about Biden. It's a weak argument. It will be further exposed as time goes. Will be interesting to see Liberian politicians keep this going once Biden announces. Sam Waller right there. Strong Boakai, man. You know. And then, yeah, so those are the comments.
Great.
Now, I'll tell you one thing though. If Joe Biden ends up in a hospital, A re-election bid is over. It's over.
Listen, as someone who as someone who worked for Boakai and Obama in 2012, I think the legal aspect of what's going on now is even more troubling than the health. Because a few months ago we were beating up on Trump that he was irresponsible what he did, and what's happening drip and drop is getting to that point where the Democrats themselves will have a hard decision to make to say, you know what, 4 years is enough, you have done well. Let us bring somebody new and all of that. It's coming to that. I can see it coming. But Mr. Dualu, you listen to a plethora of the comments here. It's a potpourri. Your take?
I think the commenter were mostly right. They made a point. Most of it was against you, Mr. Gayman, because your arguments are usually far-fetched. They don't make any sense. President Weir has absolutely no leeway in these elections. But you know, I want to agree strongly tonight with Mr. Padmore. We have to talk about everything concerning the country, and it's not to say you're agreeing with somebody. I mean, you're going on his side, but he did say some things that are very, very important that should be said in these elections. And Mr. Eastman struck a lot of points when it comes to our natural resources, how we should address them. We're a rent-seeking country. There is no decision that goes into that if you're entirely rent-seeking. And I firmly believe we should close the mines in Liberia until we build the institutions to protect us. Because if we don't have the institutions, they're not going to protect us. And Mr. Eastman stressed his point, look, having expert doesn't make you less than anything else. We have to hone Liberian skills. Look, people make the argument now, and I'll always say this, Liberia has the expertise now in literally almost every field around the globe. Do what a Singaporean did. Do what Lee did. Look, he went around the world looking for the better Singaporeans, brought them home, and they helped him build the institutions back home. You have to read his book, From Third World to First World, the Singaporean story. Beautiful read. It's a long book, but it's a beautiful read. How you can get this poor country into the place. Do you know right now Singapore per capita is more than that of the US? We have a better quality of living in that small little island country with no resources. And we, by comparison, we have 1,000 times more resources than Singapore. Yet we are 1,000 years behind Singapore. How does that make sense? There are ways to do it. Proper leadership. Thank you so much, Mr. Gayman.
Great. We're going to be getting to our close. Mr. Padmore here, address and then close. For the first time, we'll be out of here on time.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, I read the comments, you know, and what I love about our viewers is that they sometimes disagree with you, but in the end, you see that all they want is the best for Liberia, and that's what I love about them. You know, they just want what is best for Liberia. Somebody mentioned concerning, you know, leveraging politician salary with GDP. I totally agree. That should be in the law. There should be a ceiling. If the country is not bringing in a certain GDP, nobody should be making money over this. Period. If you want more money, put in policies that will grow the GDP.
Mr. Padmore, so sorry. Cap the amount of money we use to run the government at 30% of the budget. It shouldn't be over 30%, something like that. Make a law.
Yeah. If you want to spend more money in government, create more revenue. And you will create more revenue by more economic activity. It's one boat. If you raise the whole boat, everybody rises with the boat. That's how it works, you know. But you know, you hear these are not policy makers. These are just our viewers. Just putting it from a layman point of view, so that our policy makers now can take that, chew it up, digest it, you know, and make something out of it. But do we see that? No. What we see is everybody just seeking their own little space, you know, I go in government because I go to government when I couldn't make rent for my little 2-bedroom apartment I have in 2017. You know, now I have a mansion, I have millions of dollars that I can just spread everywhere, and then people come and they host me. That's what we are. But you know, we stay here. You know, and once we're here, we have hope. This year is going to be a huge year. I know everybody say that, you know, every election is the most consequential election, But literally speaking, for this generation of Liberians, this election will be the most consequential elections. The people who are there today, who are running, will not be running in 2020 now for the most part. You know, there will be a complete change. How do we usher into that change? It's going to be extremely important in this election. You know, so we have to trust our people. We have to trust. We've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of advancement, a lot of growth in the Liberian political voter, and you know, and we're hoping that this continues to grow between now and October, and that the people make the right decision. So thank you so much. As always, I enjoy my time, and we'll look for another Sunday.
Thank you, Mr. Eastman. You got 1 minute.
You know, we're in an election year, and we're going to have to ask ourselves some critical questions. Do we want more of the same, or do we want a change? And before you answer that question, we have to do some soul searching on our own. You know, we have to know who we are. Who are we as a people? Have we identified ourselves? Okay. Why are we here? What is our purpose as Liberians? Why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing? Eating pusawa every day? Is that why we're here? Is that our purpose? A lot of times that people don't ask these questions. They go about doing their business every day, doing the same thing. Get up, go to work, eat pusawa, go to bed. Get up, go to work, eat pusawa, go to bed. Is that why you're here? Then you have to ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do as a person to affect my life, to affect somebody else's life? These questions, when you start asking them, it gives you start to think before you even know where to vote. Because you have to answer them in yourselves before you know what is the better for the whole, for the group. And then where am I going? Where am I going as a person? Then when you answer that question, where are you going as a person, then you will know where you want the nation to go. So it's a great year for reflection. But before we can start voting, we got to know a whole lot of book. But we have to answer these questions to ourselves to guide us on how we should vote, who we should vote for, and what do we want to come out of it? Where do we want to go? So that's how I will leave the audience. The audience has been great. We're glad you follow us. Your questions, even if they're not read today, they will be read later. And your comments are always going to be archived and put into an analysis. So stay with us. We really appreciate you along for the ride.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I have to admit to was 2006 when I was in Liberia. I was in the office of my buddy. He was, running to be president pro tem. And we were talking about the salaries. And we had an intellectual in the room, and he said, what Ellen is doing is basically the redistribution of the wealth of the nation. So we are paying the lawmakers all this money. Hopefully it will trickle down. So my concern was that if we are looking at 80% of the total GDP is going to recurring expenses, no matter how smart you can be, what policy you have, 20% of GDP cannot do anything in the nation. So my concern was not only was she redistributing the wealth in their own understanding, but that it was codified. That means they made it a law. And once it got put into law and passed, now for that to be changed, we now have to go back to the lawmaker and say, repeal the law and fire yourself.
Not necessarily, Mr.
It is the law. You cannot, the executive cannot go and say, we are going to repeal the law. You cannot say, I'm going to use executive order to repeal a law. For a law to be off the book, it has to be repealed. It has to go through that process. So here we are. Someone says, can we now put a bill on, let's say, on the floor to cut salaries? Let's say
the bill will not pass. Do what it can get.
That's the point. So this is what we are talking about here.
What is so change?
Listen, Mr. Dualo, it was an error that was made, and it's one that is going to haunt us for a while. And we here at the close, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a serious issue in Liberia, our unitary system. Until we can come up with a system where we divest power from the executive, we are going to be like dog chasing our tail. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. I think we got the most educated audience. The questions were balanced. There were no abuses here. There were no insults. They were all based on policies and your understanding of issue. We appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, next Sunday, same time, same place, same individual. Go, George. We are 2023 one-round victory. God bless. We see you. As always, we end our show when we say we are all Liberians.
We are Liberians.
There you go. Chief of Staff, this is.
We are Liberians.